You think you know what a European capital looks like. Grand old squares, centuries of settled history etched into every stone. Now, imagine a city where the past is so fiercely debated, so politically explosive, that the government spent over €500 million to build a brand new, ancient-looking version of itself, right on top of the old one. What happens when a nation decides its own capital needs a complete identity transplant? This isn't a story about sightseeing. This is an exploration into a city at war with its own soul, a place of staggering ambition and profound, bitter controversy. Forget your travel guides. We're about to uncover the secrets of a city, trying to decide who it is, right before our very eyes. The first impression of Central Skopje, the capital of North Macedonia, is not one of discovery, but of deliberate, theatrical confusion. It's a sensory assault. Your eyes are immediately drawn upwards, past the throngs of people, to a colossal bronze statue of a warrior on a rearing horse, his fist raised defiantly to the sky. He doesn't just occupy the main square, he conquers it. Around his base, a massive fountain complex erupts in timed displays, its water jets dancing to orchestral music blasted from hidden speakers, while muscular bronze lions stand guard, eternally roaring. It feels less like a public square and more like the opening scene of an epic film. You cross a bridge, itself lined with a veritable army of statues of philosophers, saints, and revolutionaries, and you're confronted by another, equally massive monument, a seated king, his gaze stern and paternal. Between these two giants, every available inch of public space seems to be filled with more bronze. Heroes you've never heard of, martyrs whose stories are known only locally, all cast in the same gleaming, slightly too new bronze, all staring with an unnerving, state-sanctioned permanence. The buildings that frame this spectacle are a strange mirage, a dream of a past that never was. They look like they've been airlifted from classical Athens or imperial Rome. Gleaming white facades adorned with Doric and Corinthian columns, ornate pediments crowded with sculpted figures and grand porticos. An archaeological museum that looks like a supersized Parthenon, a foreign ministry that could be a Roman temple. In the shallow Vardar River below, two massive, wooden galleons, looking like pirate ships from a movie set, are permanently moored, serving as hotels and restaurants. It is overwhelming, disorienting, and feels profoundly, deeply unreal. Because, of course, it is. The vast majority of this grand classical city center was built after 2010. This is the public face of a government project known as Skopje 2014. Officially, its stated goal was to boost national morale, to inspire pride, and to give the capital a more classical and European aesthetic after decades of socialist-era architecture. But to understand the true, explosive motivation behind this €500 million facelift, you have to understand the decades-long identity-defining feud over a single word, Macedonia. When this small, landlocked nation declared its independence from a collapsing Yugoslavia in 1991, it called itself the Republic of Macedonia. Its southern neighbor, Greece, immediately objected with furious intensity. For Greece, Macedonia is an exclusively Hellenic name and concept, inextricably linked to the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon and their own large, northern province of Macedonia. They accused their new neighbor of historical theft, of appropriating Greek heroes and symbols, and they feared it was a precursor to territorial claims on their land. The core of this dispute centered on one man, Alexander the Great. So, that colossal statue in the main square, the one officially, and rather coyly, named Warrior on a Horse. Everyone knows it's Alexander the Great. and the grand monument of the seated king on the other side of the river. That's his father, Philip I of Macedon. Before a landmark deal was signed, the country's main airport was Skopje Alexander the Great Airport. The main highway was the Alexander of Macedon motorway. The Project Skopje 2014 was not just urban renewal, it was a loud, defiant, and incredibly expensive act of historical claim, staking. It was a government-led policy of antiquization, an attempt to build a national identity by directly linking the modern Slavic nation to the ancient Macedonian kingdom. It was an act of casting a contested narrative in bronze and plaster, daring the world to disagree. But as you walk through this strange, manufactured city, you can't escape the feeling that, by trying so desperately to project one specific story, it might be deliberately burying all the others. But then, you walk across the historic stone bridge, a 15th century Ottoman structure that has survived earthquakes and wars, past the Fox, classical constitutional court, and step through an invisible veil. The triumphant orchestral music from the fountains fades. The gleam of white marble is replaced by the worn texture of cobblestone. The very air changes. You have left the new Skopje behind, and you are now in the Shuar the Ija, the old bazaar. And you are in a completely different world. This isn't a reconstruction, it's a living, breathing organism. This is one of the oldest and largest bazaars in the Balkans, a sprawling labyrinth of narrow streets that serves as a powerful testament to the 500 years the region spent under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. The soundscape here is not a pre-recorded soundtrack, but a low, organic hum, the murmur of conversation in Macedonian and Albanian, the sharp clinking of tiny coffee cups, the rhythmic tap, tap, tap of a coppersmith's hammer shaping a decorative plate. The smell is a rich tapestry of grilled meat. The scent of teavapi sizzling on charcoal, wafting from tiny, hole-in-the-wall eateries. It's the aroma of strong, unfiltered Turkish coffee being brewed on hot sand, and the honey, sweet perfume of baklava and other pastries displayed in the windows of family-run bakeries that have been here for generations. Here, history isn't declared by colossal statues. It's whispered from the ancient stones of 15th century mosques, their elegant minarets piercing the skyline. It's discovered in the quiet, hidden courtyards of old trading inns, called Hands, where merchants on the Silk Road once rested their caravans. You can feel it in the cool, echoing chambers of the Dot Pasha Hammam, a magnificent 15th century bathhouse whose twin domes now shelter the National Art Gallery. This place speaks of a history that is multicultural, layered, and deeply connected to the East, a stark contrast to the singular, Hellenic, focused narrative being forged just across the river. The Old Bazaar is the historic heart of Skopje's large Albanian and Muslim community, and this is the core of the controversy of Skopje 2014. The project, with its overwhelming, almost obsessive focus on a contested, classical, and Orthodox Christian past, felt to many Albanians and other minorities like a deliberate erasure of their own history. While the government was spending hundreds of millions of euros to build a new ancient history from scratch, the very real, living history of the bazaar, with its crumbling facades and desperate need for infrastructure investment, felt profoundly neglected and disrespected. Walking here, you realize Skopje's identity isn't a single story waiting to be told. It's an ongoing, often tense, negotiation between two profoundly different worlds, separated by nothing more than a stone bridge. One is a loud, bombastic declaration of who a part of the nation wants to be. The other is a quiet, resilient testament to who the city and its people have been for centuries. But Skopje's story of radical, top-down transformation didn't begin in 2014. To truly understand this city's cycle of destruction and reinvention, you have to go back to a single, terrifying date, July 26, 1963, at exactly 5:18 a.m. On that morning, a catastrophic earthquake, registering a powerful 6.1 on the Richter scale, ripped through Skopje. In less than a minute, over 80% of the city was reduced to rubble. More than 1,000 people were killed, and nearly 200 Zalozan were left homeless. The old Skopje, a charming city of elegant 19th-century neoclassical buildings, historic neighborhoods, and Ottoman remnants, was effectively gone. The world responded with an unprecedented outpouring of global aid and solidarity. Money, materials, and expertise poured in from 87 nations. Skopje became a global symbol of resilience, reborn under the hopeful motto, the city of international solidarity. And it was rebuilt as a city of the future. This was the era of socialist Yugoslavia, a non-aligned nation with a bold, modernist vision. Under a master plan developed by a team, led by the celebrated Japanese architect Kenzo Tange, Skopje was reborn as a showcase of brutalist and modernist architecture. Brutalism, with its raw, exposed concrete, monumental geometric forms, and functionality-first ethos, was not just an aesthetic choice, it was a deeply philosophical one. It represented a complete and deliberate break from the bourgeois styles of the past. It symbolized a belief in social progress, a utopian vision of communal living, and the forward-looking, multi-ethnic Yugoslav identity of brotherhood and unity. Before Skopje 2014 began its campaign of concealment, this powerful concrete language dominated the city's character. You can still find its most potent remnants if you know where to look. The central post office complex, a staggering structure that looks like a concrete lotus flower or a crash-landed alien spacecraft, is a world-renowned masterpiece of the style. The sprawling university campus, designed by Marko Mulet, and the rows of modular apartment blocks, known as panelki, were not just buildings. They were monuments to a collective dream of resilience and a shared, forward-looking future. So when the Skopje 2014 project began cladding these concrete structures in Fox, Baroque plaster, styrofoam columns, and plastic balustrades, it wasn't just an act of construction. It was a conscious act of ideological and historical revisionism. It was a new nationalist government, eager to distance itself from the country's socialist and multi-ethnic Yugoslav past, literally papering over it. In some places, the result is bizarre. You can see a building with a new classical facade on the front, while the raw concrete of its original brutalist form is still visible from the back. It's a jarring architectural metaphor for a city's conflicted identity. The fight for Skopje's soul is not just between a classical vision and an Ottoman one. It's also a battle against this more recent, concrete ghost. A ghost of a utopian dream that many feel is being deliberately and tragically erased. Amidst all the political division, the architectural warfare, and the competing historical claims, there is one figure born in this city that seems to effortlessly transcend the conflict. Walk away from the grand squares and their bronze warriors, and you'll find a surprisingly modern, almost playful building. It's not a monument to a king or a conqueror. It's the memorial house of Mother Teresa. She was born Anjed Gungsabojaksiu right here in 1910, in what was then a Skuba, a bustling provincial city in the final years of the Ottoman Empire. Her biography is a reflection of the city's true historical DNA. She was an ethnic Albanian, born into a devoutly Catholic family, in a city populated by Orthodox Macedonians, Muslim Albanians, Turks, Jews, and Roma. She lived in this cosmopolitan melting pot for 18 years, a world away from the ethnic and historical purity that Skopje 2014 tries to project. Her identity was layered, complex, and quintessentially Skopjean, before she embarked on the journey that would lead her to the slums of Calcutta, and, eventually, to global recognition and sainthood. Her story is a powerful reminder of the city's authentic heritage. She represents an identity that is not based on ancient kingdoms, military conquest, or nationalist aspirations, but on a shared, borderless humanity. The memorial house itself is a quiet, contemplative space. It contains her personal letters, her simple blue and white sari, a Nobel Peace Prize medal, and a simple, touching recreation of her childhood home. In a city choked with performative grandeur, the museum's humility is its greatest strength. It feels deeply personal and refreshingly free of the heavy political baggage that crushes so much of the city center. Her quiet presence offers a different path forward. While politicians argue over which historical empire Skopje rightfully belongs to, Mother Teresa's legacy suggests that the city's true strength has always been its ability to be a crossroads, a place of diverse peoples and faiths coexisting. In a city so obsessed with monumental, state-sponsored history, the humble story of a local girl who became a global icon of compassion offers a moment of profound clarity and unity. She is perhaps Skopje's most famous, most beloved, and least controversial export to the world. So, what is the ultimate cost of building a new past? The final bill for the Skopje 2014 project is shrouded in controversy, but most estimates place it somewhere between 500 and 700 million euros. In a country with a GDP per capita among the lowest in Europe, and where the average monthly salary struggles to exceed 500 euros, this is a truly staggering sum. Critics relentlessly point out that this money could have funded the modernization of the country's crumbling hospitals, rebuilt failing schools, or been invested in programs to combat the nation's high unemployment rate. Instead, it was spent on what they derisively call kitsch, a nationalistic fantasy that has turned their capital's heart into a theme park. The project became a lightning rod for simmering public anger. In 2016, it became the main target of the Colorful Revolution, a series of mass protests against the then-ruling government, which was also mired in a massive wiretapping scandal. Armed with paint, filled balloons and water pistols, protesters marched through the city day after day, splattering the brand new statues, the pristine white ministry buildings, and the triumphal arch with vibrant splashes of color. It was a powerful, symbolic act of civil disobedience, a visual reclaiming of public space from a government they saw as corrupt and authoritarian. The splatters of paint, some of which are still faintly visible on certain monuments, are the physical scars of this intense cultural battle. Talk to the people of Skopje today, and the division remains raw. For some, particularly those who support the nationalist narrative, the project is a source of immense pride. After decades of feeling their national identity was belittled or denied by their neighbors, they finally have a capital that looks grand, European, and important. The statues of Alexander and Philip are, for them, a rightful and long overdue reclamation of their heritage. But for many others, it's a source of deep embarrassment and lingering anger. They see it as a monumentally wasteful project that has created a gaudy, inauthentic city, alienated its ethnic minorities, and turned them into a punchline. They feel their city's rich, complex, and layered identity was hijacked and replaced with a hollow, one-dimensional, and politically motivated fiction. The final irony is that just a few years after the project's peak, the government that championed it was voted out of power, The new government then signed the historic Prespa Agreement with Greece, officially changing the country's name to the Republic of North Macedonia, and agreeing that the history of ancient Macedon is Hellenic. The very historical claim that the half-billion euro project was built to assert has been officially relinquished. The statues now stand as monuments not to a glorious past, but to a costly, failed political gamble. Skopje is so much more than a city with a bizarre number of statues. It is a living, breathing, and wounded lesson in how nations are made, unmade, and remade. It forces every visitor to ask uncomfortable questions. Who gets to write history? What is the thin line between patriotism and aggressive nationalism? And what is the true price of building a dream? The city, with its clashing layers of Ottoman bazaars, socialist concrete, and neo-classical fantasy, doesn't give you easy answers. Instead, it offers something far more valuable, a powerful, unforgettable, and deeply human story about the universal search for identity itself. What was the most surprising thing you learned about Skopje's story? Share your thoughts or any questions you have in the comments below. If this journey opened up a new perspective for you, please share this video with a fellow traveler who loves to look deeper than the surface of a destination. And for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating and misunderstood places, make sure to subscribe. Thank you for exploring with me.